Oh,
Oh,
oops.
okay.
Hello. Sorry, we
Let's
were
start over
muted.
again.
Hello, welcome back to our weekly live sessions at 3DQ. My name is Kevin, joined again with Mateo. So this week we are going to talk a bit about, firstly, the print bed. There's been a bit of speculation and uncertainty about
How it works.
yeah,
So,
and
we,
what it actually does.
yeah. So we've set up a bit of a demo, and hopefully that'll clarify kind of what the magic or really the material science behind it
So we'll
is.
go over that in a second. We're also going to talk a bit about setting up your prints for autonomous production. And lastly, a bit about the software, a little sneak peek onto the user interface,
Yeah.
and some of the requirements for setting up your kit.
So before we get into this, we have a bit of an announcement to make. We got tired of calling this the 3DQ print looping kit for Ender 3.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a mouthful, so we decided to name the technology Quinley.
Quinley, yeah, the newest member of our team.
The newest member of our team, Quinley. So Quinley is a technology that'll manage your prints for you. It'll do the part release, the part removal, part queuing,
Yeah.
so that you can have hassle-free unattended
Basically, yeah. So
printing.
Quinley acts as the babysitter, doing all the hard work while you can sip on a beverage and lay back or go to work. That's
Yeah.
kind of boring, but
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna keep calling this Quinley from now on. So just so you know. So if you'd like to check things out, we do run a 24/7 live stream test stressing one of the Quinley kits for the Ender 3. You can see we've got it featured here over our stream, but if you'd like, it's always up on Twitch TV/3D Loop.
And if we encourage you guys to comment any questions or just general comments in the Twitch feed. We also have a community Discord channel with
Pretty much all of our team is in there. So if you have any questions after the stream or about the kit, someone will be in there to respond. You
Yeah.
can ask the engineers and designers themselves. Additionally, we're also looking for further reviewers. We've actually got 3 lined up. One is a prominent community member in the kind of Creality group. The other is a prominent community member in 3D printing in general. And then of course we've got the editor for a pretty big and popular 3D print publication,
Yeah,
who will be sending these early kits out to for review.
So those will be kind of more information will be coming out on that in the future. For now, we are looking for some more reviewers, ideally someone who's good with video reviews.
Yeah.
But just feel free if you're interested to give us an email or a message with kind of what your skills are and what you're looking to kind of get out of the print loop kit.
Yeah. So just to recap, our early bird round sold out last week, and so we ran an early bird part 2. That's limited to 50 kits, or it will actually be closing next Tuesday.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this video. But for now, let's continue on to the main attraction.
Yes.
So we have a little demo print here. It's just a little rectangular prism with a notch on the top.
So we've been watching Reddit, and we've seen a couple things, people speculating about what exactly the auto release technology is. And so what we can tell you is it's not glass and it's not PEI.
And more importantly, the extruder doesn't just ram the print off the bed.
Otherwise, that'd be extremely counterproductive. So we've spent a long time, a couple of years, especially engineering a surface that can provide really high adhesion during prints, which is when it's important, and then adhesion, and then release the adhesion once the prints are complete. So we've set up a bit of a demo. We actually just finished printing this a couple minutes ago, and we'll and then at the end of this show, once the bed's had time to cool down, we'll demonstrate how much the adhesion changes.
Yeah, so I've got a digital scale here,
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to see, but we'll show the camera a better view of it. So the bed's still at 60 degrees. That's the printing temperature that we use for PLA. So Mateo's just gonna watch that while
Yeah.
I
So
give it a good tug.
right now the bed is in a high adhesion state.
All
So
right.
yeah,
Might have to
I'm
hold
gonna
this
hold
down.
down the frame, brace the frame. All right. And let me just tear that. Okay. I'll let go.
Okay.
So the amount of force
So
Kevin was able to apply to
that's
this
exactly 4.5 kilograms.
4.5 kilograms over a 3 by 3 centimeter area.
Millimeter.
So, no, centimeter.
The space, yes,
Yeah.
the base.
Yeah, the base is 3 by 3 centimeters.
Mhm.
And he was able to put 4.5 kilos of torque. So these parts aren't going to go anywhere when the bed is in the high adhesion state. And so what differentiates us from other print surfaces is that when other surfaces cool down, when it comes to part removal, the adhesion tends to stay at that really high level.
So if you were with us last week, I talked a little bit about a print that I was doing on one of the Ender 3 glass plates with a ceramic coating, and I just couldn't get it off. I needed to use a knife to kind of cut under the print to pull it off. But we'll see in a little bit how hard it is to remove this part once it's cooled down. So we've just set the cool down. We're going to continue on and get back to this once the bed is cooled down.
Oh my God. So I just realized we actually got raided by another streamer, and a lot of the people being raided were timed out. Mods, please untime them out. It's actually a good thing that we got hosted by a party of 27. That's 27 additional viewers to the stream who might be curious. So just a note for you guys, please unmute them. That was actually a good Twitch specific thing that just happened to us.
Cool.
So apologies for that. And thank you so much for rating us. So just to go into a bit about how this surface is basically at the core of Quinley Tech. It's what facilitates the automatic part release. So there you have definitely seen other kind of continuous printing or unattended printing.
Yeah, like one of the recent releases is the CR30,
the belt printer. And so that one functions on different principles. So while with this is an upgrade kit for your printer. So number one, you don't have to purchase an entirely new printer in order to get continuous unattended.
Yeah, like this is just going on to your Ender 3. Like.
Yeah, this is an upgrade. And then the other thing to note is that this is a solid and firm surface. So you actually get a bottom surface layer like glass, and you don't have to worry about any sort of material residue.
Yeah, so it's got the uniform adhesion of glass. It's got the removal capabilities of spring steel.
Yeah.
And the adhesion of ceramic. So
Yeah,
basically
the best
all in
of
one.
all three worlds. So yeah, again, it was this is again a bed material specifically engineered for the purpose of having these massive swings in adhesion to plastic. So hopefully that clears up some of the questions people are having about how it works, how come parts aren't being damaged. And the other thing to note is because it's a static bed like any other print surface, and we'll go into this with our slice settings, it doesn't decrease the quality of your prints in any way.
No. You
don't have to slice in a particularly special way. We're going to move into it now, but basically you can sort of maintain the same way you've been slicing. It's just a bit of a different mindset because now instead of thinking of single one-off parts that you're babysitting, you have to start looking more into higher volumes like mass production or even just a whole serial production of a variety of parts.
With that in mind, what's really important with this kind of system are profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of depends on what type of printing you're looking to do. So you could be printing a large variety of parts, Like my engineering lab that I've discussed in previous sessions, we'd get maybe like 60 parts a week, but all from different project groups. Or maybe you're a hobbyist that you're just doing a lot of projects with like lots of parts. And then the other option or alternative is you're doing high production of like single items. So could be a client project, something that you're selling.
Yeah. So yeah, why don't we get into it? So the first sort of scenario is you have, like at your lab, a high volume of a variety of parts. So when slicing, you don't want to spend a lot of time slicing each and every single part. It's important to establish a baseline because again, as you push higher volumes, that starts paying off in dividends.
Oh
right?
yeah.
So yeah, how did at your lab, how did you guys manage having to have so many different parts and so many different profiles?
Yeah, so our lab, I admit, wasn't the most organized. We have had managers changing over every year, and we had quite a collection of various branded and color filaments. So a lot of things were down to trial and error. Thankfully, most projects were kind of trial and error or prototypes, so it wasn't too important to get like very specific tolerances. But that was still an issue, for some of my projects. Like there was a second year project that I had for my engineering course where we had to make a line following robot with 5 infrared sensors in a row, and these were little kind of 3.2 times 4.4 millimeter rectangles, so really small.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just friction fit them into little rectangular squares. And it was really hard to get that tolerance right. You measure with calipers, that's fine. It's easy to make your model, but then what do you set your calibration or your tolerances at so you get that right filament just due to expansion, or squishing?
Yeah, so you basically, as you introduced new parts that might have new features, you had to go back and refine your profiles each time.
Yeah, so basically anything that was really specific, we just needed to trial and error, and that's a lot of time testing. Say you've got 10 parts that you need to get precise, maybe like 3 parts for each of those. That's a lot of time wasted.
Yeah, and I mean that's fine if you're always there between the
Yeah,
parts, but then as soon as you move on to an automated system, you really want to minimize your time.
Yeah, that's the
print
key
it.
thing is I had to be in the lab anyway because we're sorting SD cards, doing all the slicing and file upload in one go.
Yeah, so what we would recommend and what we found, like because we do have a farm here in Vancouver of we've got 36 printers networked up and we've got a total of 51 printers here on site. What we found works best because we do have a variety of client projects come through is to invest that time up front to get a really solid material profile. So whereas like you might think like you get a new filament in and you're like, oh, I'm just printing cubes with this. I don't really have to calibrate my profile too much to that. What we found, it ends up paying off to spend some extra time with calibration models.
Yeah, so this could just be, a couple prints doing a temperature tower or like an overhang and bridge test, maybe a benchy or two. And this allows you to, if you're doing lots of a variety of tests or prints, you're more likely on the first go to get a good print that has the tolerances and quality that you want.
Yeah. So we like, even though we do a lot of high volume printing here, we find it extremely useful to have these base profiles because if a client needs a prototype really quickly, we just like pull up the profile we've generated for this material. We've already done all the overhang tests on it. We've done temperature tests, so we can just kind of slice the model and get a pretty decent first result right away.
Yeah,
and oftentimes, if you're only doing one of something, that's good enough.
But if you're doing kind of mass production, this kind of moves over into kind of doing lots of parts, maybe thousands. Every improvement is multiplied by
Yeah.
however many
By a
prints you do.
factor of your entire production. Right?
Yeah, so this is one of the prints that we've showed before. It's a headband for a face shield. And we started off with our material profile that was 75 minutes. And that's just using our material profile. It printed well.
Yeah, we didn't have to actually spend time getting it to print in the first place, which was nice.
Mhm.
Like we could see our results right away. Um,
But the thing is we printed 3,000 of these.
yeah,
And we cut 75-minute print time down to 35 minutes.
yeah, and so that kind of shows the mindset of high volume printing, as you had mentioned. The tiniest optimization will, like, again, gets multiplied. So this drop from 75 to 35 minutes, that's 2,000 over the whole 3,000 parts. That ended up being for our runs about 2,000 hours saved, which is like 83 printer days, which is a massive improvement
that's
in
insane.
throughput. So like even spending time, like for example, for this part specifically, because we've done so many, if you took our first prototype and this prototype, or sorry, this is actually one of the last ones we printed, and compared them visually, they would almost look identical. But really, there are a whole bunch of optimizations in the slicer itself, and just tiny things we changed about the model that would shave off a couple seconds
just
here
making
and there.
sure that the layer heights kind of multiply to the actual thicknesses.
Yeah.
Changing infill slightly or quality just to maximize the.
Yeah, finding where you can go fast and where you can't. Yeah, like you had mentioned, making the wall thicknesses a multiple of your nozzle thickness. Like again, it's almost imperceptible, but investing that time up front to get a good model will pay off massively when you're doing continuous
So one
printing.
big thing to notice is these were all 3,000 that we printed were printed on this autonomous system.
Yeah.
And then there was no impact on quality. We still had pretty perfect prints.
Yeah.
And
the reason is you're still with your base printer. You don't have to go through a massive learning curve of a new system because you're just slapping. Well, I don't want to say you're just slapping on a bed, but really most of the moving parts are identical. So there's no sort of compromises you have to make with slicing. Like with some systems, you do have to like, if your belt is, or if your bed is sufficiently different, you do have to worry about different effects on the bed, like how slow can you move the bed so that heat can go on it. Is if your bed is flexible or fabric, it might actually move during a print, because if you want to tension a bed, you need infinite tension to prevent any sort of like rotational motion. So it with the whole I guess the philosophy behind Quinley is that it's an upgrade to your printer. So it's the same printer you know and love, hopefully. Yeah. Sometimes you can go through hard times with your printer, but it's the same printer you've always been using, but now you just have this additional capability.
That just increases your output immensely.
So actually one of the other things that we hadn't gone quite into with this is how, if you are printing on the order of thousands of parts, how do you prevent dealing with so much post-processing?
Yeah. Post-processing is kind of a big thing that you have to deal with. If you're printing with brims or supports, that takes up a lot of operator time, because like even though you've got an automated printer, you still have to spend like a minute or maybe even 30 seconds with every single part. If you got 3,000 parts, that's 3,000 minutes
of removing
of
brims.
Operator time.
Yeah, removing brims, even though it's all at the end now because your printers can keep going. You don't want, you want to try to, again, that's a big part of optimization is getting rid of as much post-processing time as you can as well. I would say it's a bit of it ended up being a bit of a surprise to us initially, because none of us here had worked on that order of parts, right? So we realized, holy cow, like just by getting rid of brims, we saved a person essentially 2 weeks of brim removal.
Just for like one project.
Yeah, for one project. So it, again, it's this kind of longer term thinking over the course of an entire production run, every small optimization you make is multiplied by however many parts you print.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the other kind of client projects that we've worked on
Sure.
and kind of how we've optimized printing.
Okay, I'm just gonna switch over to some of our other prints. Okay. So first off, we've got this suction one. So this was actually just a quick print. We only did a couple of these for one of the guys we share the shop with. This is had to be extremely high tolerance print because it has an air seal.
So this is for a CNC.
Yeah, for a CNC machine, it's used to basically pump suction through or pump all the air out and suction the print on around that seal. And so for this one, because we had spent so much time prepping the profiles, like this came off this way on the first print.
Apparently there is a noise.
Is there a noise? Oh, okay. How's this? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize. Okay, thank you so much for letting us know.
And we'll be getting to the software shortly. We're just starting with some print optimization.
Yeah, the software will be shortly. Like it's we can't stress how important it is to make sure the prints you're actually sending through the automated system are going to be successful, because like I had mentioned before, if you don't invest that time into making sure your profiles are good, you're just going to be doing mass production of poor quality prints.
Yeah.
So it is quite important to note that.
What other projects have we worked on?
So this was an example of, like, because we already had the profile, we were able to basically instantly produce one of these
on the first try.
Yeah, on the first try, and because all of these features we tested for before. So the next thing we've got is it's a peristaltic pump that we incorporated into an automated hand sanitizer. So maybe
Yeah. So this was a print-in-place gearing system that sucked up the sanitizer through a tube and then just shot it through a nozzle. So this is like a fairly complicated print with kind of fairly tight tolerances, and we were still able to print really well because, first off, we got that material profile, and also we spent a little bit of time doing kind of individual part profiles to kind of make sure it was, one, optimized for quality and also printed efficiently.
Cool. And then so next up we've got long boxes.
Yeah.
So this is a box. It's actually a really niche purpose, but it's basically a box for storing miniature art. And so for this particular client, it was really important to maintain consistently high quality finishes, because people really like to take photos of these little collections that they have.
So these look like simple parts, like there's no overhangs, no supports, it's kind of just lines and infill. But it's got a really big base, and that requires it needs a really good first layer adhesion. And it took a little while to make sure that we set up all the material profiles. Like, we're doing this in a lot of colors, a lot of materials. Like, this is a transparent blue, definitely not something that's common.
Yeah.
And we were able to do that with the high adhesion vapor bed.
Yeah.
But we still need to set up that profile.
Yeah, and once the time was invested into having profiles for those materials, then we were able to produce hundreds of these at a consistent quality, which hopefully made his clients quite happy. So it would be good to know kind of what sort of category you think you might fall into in terms of use case? Do you think you'd be using this for like a whole bunch of like varied parts, or whether you'd actually be using it for potentially like production? I know I've talked to somebody who runs an Etsy store and would really love this to be able to just produce constantly his set of models. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so we still got a little bit of cooling left to go. Do we want to move on to kind of what the software looks like, what that entails?
Sure. Yeah, okay, well, let's show the software now. So the software, the Quinley software, is basically a remote management software for your printer. So this is what it looks like. Please note this is still a beta build, because we had carved this out of our production software. So the UI is subject to change a little bit. But this is essentially how it looks like. There's a printer overview screen where you can view kind of live stats around your printer, and then there's the job submission screen. And this is kind of where it gets interesting regarding print job management. So you can see there are sort of three components to the screen. You have a file drive, and that's just where you'd upload your good G-code files, or at least that's how I like to use it. I like to upload basically production ready
your
G-code.
Final good prints that you're ready to make 1,000 of.
Yeah, because I've had experiences back, like, just using SD cards.
Oh yeah, you just have 10 different SD cards with all different versions, and you're like, which one's which?
Yeah, and so if you do end up with many different versions, that might not be the best. There's a handy and very exciting delete file function here. So if you want to delete your files, you can. So this will kind of act as a repository of production files, or that's how it's recommended.
And it's pretty easy just to re-upload a file.
Yeah, of course. You can just upload it, browse it. Something you should note is this is open in a browser window, so you don't have to have your computer connected to the printer in order to run the queue. The queue is self-managing, and so we have our software deployed on a Raspberry Pi, and then that'll host the UI to any other printer on the network. So it's super similar to how octoprint might work, like in the same way that you can remotely access your printer. This allows you to remotely access your print queue and simply just add more files as you need. And to the more tech savvy of you, like, converting this to something that you could access from anywhere is super easy.
Yeah, so we've had kind of some questions. How do we go about aborting a print, and what happens if there's a failure with the print, either something that's like sensor detected, like a thermal overload, or something you notice is wrong with the quality of the print? Say you want to kind of stop a print that you realize isn't quite ready for production.
So I'm just going to go into the printer dashboard, and so you'll see there's a couple buttons, pretty expected stuff. So yeah, there's an abort button, but if we actually go into the printer view, and again, this UI is going to change a little bit, but you have abort current and abort all. So if your current print is going bad, and you catch it going bad, you can just abort it like you normally would, and then that'll stop the print, prevent the printer from picking up any new jobs, and just hold the rest of the jobs until the printer is ready to go again. And so that's kind of like if you manually abort a print job. There are also a couple cases built into our software that'll detect things like if the homing fails, it's not going to keep pushing stuff from the queue. If the bed can't cool sufficiently, it's going to give you a warning. Thermal runaway, like all of that stuff kind of gets covered and then gets managed so that your massive queue of jobs that you've prepared doesn't get lost.
Doesn't just disappear if something happens.
Exactly. And
Uh,
so,
what if I want to kind of do some maintenance or I need to replace the filament during a job?
so in that case, there's this suspend functionality. So this is something that kind of came about as we developed the automated printing system, because typically a printer, once it's done printing a job under normal circumstances, will just finish and wait there for you to start the next job. In this case, it doesn't, and you need a way of
Just stopping it from printing between
yeah,
jobs.
exactly. Like if you need to replace filament or do some maintenance, you can hit suspend, and then what that'll do is it'll finish the current print job, um, and it will wait for you. It'll basically be in a decommissioned state where you can go do your maintenance, replace your filament.
So if I power cycle the printer, pull it apart, give it a little flipperoo, and then plug it back in, will it just start off from where it left off?
Yeah, so you plug it back in, and then you would unsuspend it or recommission it, and then it will just keep trudging through whatever queue items you had left for
Okay.
it. So it's kind of like a pause between jobs, because with the um, Quinley automated system, you're sort of not expected to be stopping between print jobs, and we had to account for that. Um, so if we go back, um, before we go through the process of submitting a job, the bed still has to cool a tiny bit more. But do you want to talk about kind of um, basically, like, when in your experience at the lab, like what would have you used, what would have you found the print queuing system very useful for? Because now you've
Yeah.
worked here for a little bit, but you've still done some work for the lab. Like how do you find those differences?
Yeah, so unlike Mateo, who's been working with these kind of print automated systems for a couple years, I still have my manual printer in my room. We our lab just runs kind of like a normal print lab. So we have to manually, use SD cards onto all our enders, use that little knob to select your files that it's pretty annoying because it's either far too sensitive if you spin it too fast or just not
Yeah.
sensitive enough.
I
Like you
love when
got
you select the wrong file
oh,
when you're
and then
manually using them.
yeah, it starts heating up. You gotta abort and then go back and then you
Yeah.
press the wrong one again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely is a bit of a struggle going back to the manual system. Uh, like just the Printly queue and scheduling is an immense upgrade to your system. Like
Yeah. It's just convenient to be able to control the printers remotely.
oh, absolutely.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of a benefit. There was a question in chat about using the Raspberry Pi. So um, we sort of, the way this is set up is similar to most standard print managing software, where we do use a Pi to control the printer, and the reasoning behind that is that you you it's especially as you have more and more printers, it's difficult to dedicate like a desktop host
Hmm.
to every single machine. So what the Pi does is it's something that is always attentive to the printer, always checking like how the print job is going, whether it's running or not, what sort of failure states might or may not like occur, and then it basically hosts it for you so that in your browser you can just remotely access and manage it. So right now we'll go into it a bit more, but for now, yes, it has to run off a Pi. There might be options in the future to have it run off like another type of machine, but
Mhm.
again, this is sort of our first offering, so we want to keep the kit pretty uniform and simple. And so we sort of stuck to the standards set by basically other software in the industry. Can the software trigger files stored on the SD card so there's no USB transfers? So the software does print over USB, but we've actually written the USB communication protocol from the ground up. And there's also a custom flavor of Marlin that we've developed that ensures that you don't get that laggy USB printing effect that sometimes happens with certain hosts. So um, that was actually the first part of the software we worked on was the communication protocol. So if you're concerned about like things like massively detailed print lagging because the serial port is not fast enough, we've done a whole bunch of like literally. I mean, last time we updated the communication protocol was even just a couple months ago. So pretty much over the course of a year and a half now, we've been refining and testing that so that you don't don't encounter that.
So, what are there any other requirements for the system? I know we've got the Pi here. This is kind of an example.
Yeah.
So I got a Pi here. We do have kind of a temporary mount on our printer that's kind of just to the left. So it's kind of up to the user where to put that. You can have it external. You can mount it underneath.
Yeah, there's so many octoprint mounts out there that we figured like you can choose whatever's best for your case.
So you do need a 16 gigabyte SD card. Just to we have an image on our website that you can flash to this.
Yeah.
You flash it, fairly simple. We'll have instructions. Plug it in, connect to your printer, power it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, so kind of in terms of connecting and powering your Pi, so the Pi you can connect to your wireless network or you can connect to it through Ethernet, and then it'll host the UI for you on anywhere on your LAN essentially. And so in terms of powering it, there are kind of two options. In-house, we actually draw power from the power supply through a buck converter, so that way we save an outlet. Like
So
the Pi comes on with the printer. It's very simple.
So that's kind of up to personal preference. Like if you're like me at home, where I've got my laptop, my printer, my lights, my phone charger all on one outlet, you might want to save the plug. It's not very expensive to hook up a buck converter. The other thing is if you're running a print farm, say like us, we have 36 printers in our production room. It's a lot of extra cable management that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, it's nice to have something that will basically that'll host it. So in terms of the printer firmware, it's basically stock Marlin firmware, but we've changed up some of how the communication works. Just again optimizing that USB communication and solving some of those issues there. Kind of wish it had been mentioned about having to use a Pi. Never used one or owned it. If you after the stream contact us and we can talk about how the Pi setup works. We basically made it extremely simple where you would just again the whole thing is image, so you just need to write to an SD card. There's going to be pretty detailed tutorials on doing it.
You don't need to know about software development. You don't need a computer science major. It's if you do have some experience like writing to a terminal, that would help, but really it's not too complex.
Okay, so I'm going to switch back to this because the bed is cooled off. And now we want to show the adhesion comparison between. So at the top of the stream.
Do you want to just pull us back up?
Yeah, here we go. So at the top of the stream, Kevin had yanked on it with a luggage scale. I'll post the video in our Discord just for extra proof if you want it. And he was able to get 4.5 kilos of force of adhesion force off of this 3x3 centimeter square. So now that the part is actually released, like you can fast forward through the stream. We didn't replace anything.
It's just been sitting here.
Much. Yeah, why don't you show us how the part?
I've got a little rolled up sticky note here, and I'm just gonna see if I can just sweep that off there.
That's quite a lot less than 4.5.
Yeah, that's definitely like I can just.
Yeah,
It's
so again, it's not magic. It's
It
material, a bed material that was specifically engineered for this purpose. So
what was the quote you had?
yeah, any technology advanced enough is comparable to magic, but yeah, it's just a matter of chemistry, really. So hopefully that kind of clears up some of the kind of um, speculations or possible misconceptions. That's also our bad. We didn't communicate how the bed works
Yeah.
well enough.
So we have had some current concerns about, how long does it take to cool down. It does take, about 15 minutes, maybe longer, depending on the ambient room temperature. But you firstly, you have to realize that your production potential just with the kit, even if it took an hour to cool down, is significantly improved.
Just because you don't have to
You
be
don't
there.
have to be there. It prints, or it removes so easy. You don't have to apply any adhesive.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's sort of unique to our print surface, because the removal force is so low. There's essentially no damage to there is no damage to the print bed when the parts are released and removed. And so like the, the original kind of good one that I had set up while I was still experimenting has lasted me 4 years.
Wow, 4 years.
Like it's a long time. So um, again, that was sort of the whole idea behind this removal technology is you don't have to introduce any sort of new moving parts to your printer. It's an upgrade, so it's the same printer that you've always had. It's just that now it has this additional capability of queuing up print jobs. So speaking of which, now that the bed is clear, I'm just gonna quickly walk you guys through what queuing up print jobs looks like. So this stress test that we printed for the luggage scale, that's the model I've got here. You just pick it.
You preset the material and color.
There's only going to be one printer connected.
So yeah, that might change a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same.
And then you say how many of them you want. So if I want one, I send it to the queue. Actually, see right on my LCD, the printer started heating. If I want 6 more, I'll send 6 more to the queue. And then you'll see this one's already been picked up, so it's printing. The printer's name is default right now, just because it's our test bench. And then every subsequent job will essentially be kind of queued up after that, and you can manage them and delete them and all that fun stuff. On the print overview screen, you can see this printer has now gone into the heating state, and basically this is just like a progress bar that fills up during the print. You can see the temperatures live, kind of pretty
standard overview.
Pretty standard stuff, but what's super nice about it is that it's completely unattended, and you can kind of remote access it whenever you want to. So I'm just gonna go back, and there have been a bunch of questions, so why don't we go through and answer them in a little bit of this time here. So can it be used on a mini PC box? It should be possible, actually, if it's a Linux box. We do have, I think over the long term, we'll probably support Windows, but kind of the ease of setting it up on like a Linux box or a Pi is sort of what drove us to support that first. Couple other questions. Is it based off octoprint? It kind of looks like it is. No, all of our software is actually written from scratch, because our software was written with big print farms in mind, and continuous printing in mind. So there are a couple things fundamental to octoprint, which is like a beautiful piece of software, but that we couldn't port over or create a plugin for. So
it just didn't work.
Yeah, it basically it was too difficult to implement it. And again, there's some challenges presented with the automated printing that like on a fundamental level required a different architecture for us. So I think Well, custom motherboards like the SKR Mini, you work with the software. If Oh, maybe we should have a discussion about that in Discord. We are planning on supporting over time different configurations. So like if you have mods on your printer, uh, we've already accounted for a whole bunch of really common Ender mods.
Yeah,
Like
a lot of hardware is pretty straightforward.
yeah,
But I think the software, it's just a little hard to work on so many different things at once.
yeah, but that being said, again, this is our initial, like this is a pre-sale.
Yeah,
The
this is
initial
the
offering
first autonomous print thing system
of this type.
of this type where you don't need or you don't have a decrease in quality. Um, you've got this durable bed that uses the same slicing as normal.
Yeah.
It is I guess we're just releasing it.
Yeah, but we are really interested in discussing custom motherboard support and others support for other mods that are commonly done on the printers. Yeah, we're familiar with Octofarm, but again, on a very fundamental level, we had to shape the architecture of our software in a slightly different way, and it'll start to become more and more clear over time as features are being ported over for our production system or just added in the future. Right now, it like again, this is early. We want to get feedback on what features are useful and what isn't before we start committing to doing or before we start pushing features that may not be useful to our users. So it yeah, again, this is like a feedback collection period, but over time with some of the stuff we had planned, it does kind of require us to have built that software from the ground up. Yeah, so I guess if that's it for questions, so when we wrap it up as this print gets started.
Yeah. So we've finished our initial early bird, and we've got a second round of early bird kits being sold, and these do come with a bonus spool holder that we've custom made in house, or it doesn't come with the spool holder. It comes with
All the hardware,
the hardware, the filament, and we talked about that in previous why that's important.
Yeah, it turns out the spool holder over time becomes actually a major point of failure. So a bearing spool holder, especially if you're planning to run a ton of prints through your printer, becomes really useful. So next live stream, we'll be covering the challenging prints that you guys have submitted to us. So if you don't know, we're running a bit of a contest for challenging prints that you've got that you managed to print on your own printer and would like to see printed on the Quinley automation kit. So if you have a challenging print, please send it in to us. Over the course of next week, we'll be printing them, and then we'll pick the best one, and the best one will receive a free Quinley Ender 3 conversion
Yeah,
kit.
and we've got also have a continuous stream that you can see over
Right
here. So that's running 24/7. We're gonna have some Halloween themed parts going on there, and you can kind of see how the print removal works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically the stress test for a kit before we start to get it out to our reviewers, which we're looking for more of. So we've got 3 in the bank. We'd like to get a couple more, because the more I think if we can send you a kit and have you evaluate it for yourself, I think that'll be much more useful to community members than us showing you like
yeah, we've got a couple of reviewers, some people prominent in the Creality and just general printing community, as well as printing publication. We are looking maybe for some video reviewers, so if you're interested, you can get a kit, do a review, and
yeah, let us know what you like and what you don't like, how it works for you, and then hopefully, well, because we make all of our parts in-house on our own farm, it's going to be very easy for us to implement feedback. So we'd love to get into your hands. Yeah.
So with that, again, we have our early bird second round ending soon. So it's going to end on Tuesday or until we sell 50 kits. And that will be $87 with 6 months free shipping.
Free software.
Or sorry, software, not shipping.
And so, yeah, limited to 50 kits, and the cutoff is Tuesday. After that,
it's just regular pre-sale for the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And that's $97 with 3 months software.
So our ship out date is listed as January, but we're actually pushing really hard to get some of the kits out before the end of the year. So we're kind of looking at January at the latest.
So, do you want to answer that question about software there in 2 kits?
Which one?
The
Oh,
second-
here, yeah. Sorry, I'm a little bit blind.
Oh,
It'll depend. The software is like it depends if you're managing 2 printers at the same time or if you're managing a single printer with 2 subscriptions. It depends on your use. It's similar
Yeah.
to like a lot of some octoprint plugins have like a paid version. It's basically modeled off that.
So
kind of pretty industry
For
standard.
now, it's you need the software for 1 printer, and you can use kind of 2 different. You'll have 2 different browsers for each one. They both have their own URL.
But please stay tuned in the future as we kind of package more of our farm software together for you. So thanks again for joining us on this Wednesday evening.
Yeah. If you have any more questions, feel free to follow up with us either on the Discord or shoot us an email. We're always happy to answer questions. So I think that brings us. We're a little early, so I guess we can answer a couple more questions.
Yeah, sure. 1 Pi, 1 printer. Yep, that's how we've got it set up now. That's actually how we have it set up at our print farm. We've got a Pi per printer. Like I had mentioned, right now it works on the lowest tier Pi 4s, but we're kind of, as our development progresses, we're looking at seeing whether we can get it to run on cheaper boards. The only thing, obviously, with software development is you kind of have to future-proof. It's less expensive to get a Pi 4 now than it would be to start on like a Pi 2 and then have to upgrade it if some new features came out. Is there a farm dashboard interface also? There will be. Again, please stay tuned. But yeah, that's something that we're actively working
This
towards.
is the first version that we're releasing.
Yeah.
We do have our in-house production version that manages 36 printers, but
you can kind of guess from the UI itself what it might look like. But
yeah, so our version, it's meant for internal use. It's just not ready for public use.
It's coming soon. Yeah, now some announcements soon. All right, cool. I think that's it for today. Hopefully you guys join us next time as we try out and show off these challenge prints that we get.
Next week might be a little bit more demonstrative, but yeah, hope to see you again. Thank you very much for joining us and have a great evening.